In a world increasingly dominated by digital convenience and portability, the analog hi-fi resurgence has emerged as a powerful counterpoint. This resurgence represents a longing for a more natural, tangible, and authentic musical experience. It started with vacuum tube amplifiers, followed by vinyl records, and then, what's coming up next? Among the common analog audio formats, magnetic tape holds a unique and unparalleled value. It is the ultimate audio format for analog mastering, which is based on the multi-decades craft of electromagnetic engineering. It is a recordable analog format, offering a personalized and curated musical experience, without the constraints of mass-produced albums. It is a fine-tunable analog format, harmonizing objective rules and subjective preferences. It is a nostalgic format, promoting social bonding through shared memories. And it is also a visible format, enhancing auditory enjoyment with fine machine aesthetics. There was a pseudo-common sense that audio tape was a compromised format for convenience. For many people, the true beauty of this audio format had never been explored due to the way it was used repetitively for casual purposes. It is an underrated analog format that is patiently awaiting for its shining moment and reward the serious users. No other analog mediums came with such an untapped potential that can be unlocked by passionate users' meticulous care of equipment as well as art of thoughtful curation. Unless just for fun, making a serious mixtape is not an effortless journey though. Needless to mention that having a well-maintained tape recorder is not everything but the minimum qualification. Even in the 21st century, creating an analog mixtape can still be time-consuming. Despite the popularity of computers, the actual performance is largely software-dependent. For instance, starting a mixtape project with digital audio files has never been so easy today, thanks to the plentiful supply of playlist apps and DJ apps. But if the targeted format has to be an analog tape, the workflow becomes convoluted. Anyone who has tried to make an analog mixtape with a computer may easily remember how much time had been spent on arranging the audio files to fit the tape length on both sides, and how many times the same tape had to be rewound and re-recorded again and again, just to correct the previous misestimation of audio level peaks. As audio processing becomes more and more computerized, compiling analog mixtape remains a forgotten field with poor automation. The absence of domain-specific software is the primary gap to be closed. A dedicated software project, code-named Mixtape Nerd, has been proposed to streamline the analog mixtape workflow. The finished app is a lightweight utility instead of a versatile software suite, which focuses on the top three basic needs, which are tape length fitting, level normalization, and dynamic range optimization. Creating a new project. Use this menu item to create a new mixtape project. A mixtape project contains two playlists for side A and side B respectively. To add audio files to a playlist, please use this menu item, or simply drag and drop audio files to the playlist of side A or B. The acceptable audio file formats are WAV, FLAC, MP3, AAC, and APE. As soon as an audio file has been added to the playlist, the app will check its access permission and format. On failure, a red exclamation mark will be shown. If the audio file passed the initial check, it is waiting for being analyzed. The app will automatically scan the entire file for summarizing its audio profile. The scan progress is indicated by a pie chart. Depending on number of CPU cores, multiple files can be scanned simultaneously to reduce waiting time. On success, the time length will be shown along with a green check mark. To remove an audio file from the list, click on the trash icon. To move an audio file, use the mouse to drag and drop the file within the playlist or across the playlists. The status bar at the bottom shows the overall information on each side, which are tape side, number of audio files on this side, tape length per side, sum of all audio file lengths in this side, estimated total playtime after applying all length fitting options, and current play progress. Save and open a project. To save current mixtape project, use these menu items. The current project, including the two playlists for side A and B, along with current settings, will be saved to a .mtn file, which is a proprietary binary format that can only be opened by this app. The actual audio contents are not stored in this file. Instead, this file only contains links to the associated audio files. Hence, it is recommended to save the project file to the same folder where the associated audio files are located. To open a project, please use this menu item. Or, to quickly open a recently opened project, please use this menu item. It is highly recommended to keep all the audio files under the system-designated music folder, or a subfolder under the music folder. The reason is that this app is technically sandboxed with enhanced security, which has to follow the categorized data access rule enforced by the operating system. If the source audio files are located outside of the system-designated music folder, the user has to explicitly allow this app to access those audio files. In such a case, the app will show a problem-handling dialog, with multiple suggestions and instructions. Each option is also explained in the app's embedded documentation. Depending on the actual operating system, some options may need to be applied just once, some may need to be applied repeatedly, and some may not work at all. So, to avoid the hassle, it is highly recommended to keep all the audio files under the system-designated music folder, or a subfolder under the music folder. Fitting tape length. Given a collection of audio files in various sizes, finding the best combinations to fit the designated tape length on both sides is not an easy task. For example, with 24 audio files in an album, there will be over 16 million ways to fill up a C90 cassette tape. And even if the best combination could be found, it may not necessarily fit the tape length on both sides perfectly. This app comes with features for assistance. Clicking on this button to set the tape length per side, along with the leader tape length per side. The given tape length will be displayed in the bottom status bar. Clicking on this button to let the app automatically rearrange all the audio files to best fit the given tape length. Optionally, the optimization priority can be given to side A, side B, or both sides equally. The app tries to solve the unidimensional bins packing puzzle by using the combinatorial traversal technique. As the total number of audio files grows, the computing time increases quickly. There is a way to reduce the computing time, which will be described later. Now the audio files have been rearranged to best fit to the tape length on both sides. Before doing auto fit, the user may wish to keep some audio files in place without being moved. This can be done by clicking on the anchor button corresponding to the desired file. Clicking again on the same button will release the anchor. If the total number of files on both sides A and B exceeds 24, the auto-fit process may take significantly longer time to complete. To reduce the processing time, consider anchoring more files. Oftentimes, the rearranged audio files may still not exactly fit to the given tape length. Clicking on this button to see additional options. If the total length of all audio files is shorter than the tape length of the corresponding side, check this option to allow the app to insert padding silence between audio files. User can define the maximum allowed length of the padding silence. But the actually used silence length will be calculated as needed for best filling the tape length. On the other hand, if the total length of all audio files exceeds the tape length of the side, the app can optionally trim leading or trailing silence from within each audio file. If the total length still remains too long, 3 more fading options are available, which are fade out at the end of each audio track, fade out at the end of last audio track only, and cross-fade between all audio tracks. User can define the fading window width, but the fading start point will be auto-calculated to best fit the tape length. After applying all these length fitting options, the estimated total play length will be shown in the status bar at the bottom. Connecting a tape recorder. This is as easy as connecting the computer's audio output port to the tape recorder's line input port. If the computer does not have an audio output port, an external USB DAC will be required. By default, it is assumed that the tape recorder to be used for making a mixtape has decent quality, has been well maintained and has been calibrated to meet the factory specification, or otherwise the sound quality may compromise, which cannot be compensated by this software app. It is worth to mention that the app can also be used without a tape recorder connected, if it is only used for curating a playlist. Selecting audio device. Clicking on this menu item to bring up the audio devices dialog. Use the audio output device selector to select a desired sound card, or select the system default to select the current sound card designated by the operating system. Use the audio interface checkbox to toggle between alternative audio programming interfaces. Depending on the actual sound card used, whose driver might be more compatible with one programming interface than another. This app provides two alternative audio programming interfaces for the user's choice. If the app crashes after switching audio programming interface, it often means the sound card is not fully compatible with that audio programming interface. In the worst case, the app may keep crashing by each launch when attempt to initialize with that audio programming interface. If in this case, please hold down the Shift key when launching the app until the splash screen disappears and the app's main UI shows up. This will force that app to toggle alternative audio programming interface at launch. On the other hand, if the sound card is tested working good with the AUHAL audio programming interface on macOS, or the Wasapi audio programming interface on Windows, it is recommended to stay with this audio programming interface because it supports exclusive mode. If the exclusive mode checkbox is checked, the app will try to request exclusive access to the selected sound card on behalf of the user. On success, the selected sound card can only be controlled by this app, which bypasses any unnecessary mixer, effects or enhancer on the audio path, resulting in a shorter and clean audio path for more faithful reproduction of the original audio. However, this mode will prevent other apps and even including the operating system from sharing the select sound card simultaneously. And the success of requesting exclusive mode is not guaranteed, as it depends on the specific system. For example, some sound cards on some Windows versions require the user to turn on this feature via a system control panel, which varies case by case. Level calibration. There are more than one way to calibrate this app depending on different purposes, each with pros and cons. If the sole purpose of using this app is to compile a playlist, no calibration is necessary. In this scenario, the app is merely used for fitting a group of audio files to the desired tape length. This spreadsheet-like process can be accomplished without a tape recorder connected, eliminating the need for audio level calibration at this stage. However, once a tape recorder has been connected, a minimum calibration will be necessary to ensure audio level alignment between the computer and the recorder. The minimum calibration procedure is pretty much the same as using any other standard media player app for recording a mixtape. Try to select the loudest audio file in the album and play the loudest passage in that file. Meanwhile, test recording on a tape and then playing it back. If the recording sounds too quiet with significant tape noise, or it sounds too loud with noticeable distortion, adjust the tape recorder's recording level knob, and/or the computer's output volume control, and then repeat the procedure again until satisfactory is met. This is a trial and error approach. For an experienced user, this procedure can be simplified by looking at the tape recorder's level meter, where the objective is to keep the loudest peak not exceeds a sweet spot according to the user's personal experience. Sometimes, it is just not as easy to find the loudest passages for testing. Use the peak index menu item to let the app suggest up to 5 loudest passages in all the audio files. To try one out, select it and click on the Start Play button. So far, with the minimum calibration, all the meters on the app's UI can be disregarded, as if they are non-existing. But if the user prefer to let the meters display a little bit meaningful information, please move on to finish the basic calibration in a few simple steps. Please keep the tape recorder in recording mode, and then drag this slider all the way to the rightmost position. Next, select 400 Hz or 1 kHz to temporarily turn on the built-in test tone generator. Meanwhile, drag this slider back and forth, and watch the tape recorder's level meter, until the tape recorder's meter is pointing to the 0 mark. Finally, turn off the test tone generator by selecting None. With the basic calibration finished this way, the meters are now prepared to display the translation of digital level in dBFS to analog ppm in decibel, as well as to analog VU in decibel. With the minimum or basic calibration complete, please always keep all the audio processors at the None position, as they are not yet ready for use with just the minimum or basic calibration being done. Their usages and benefits will be discussed later, but before engaging any of them, additional steps need to be taken to get them ready for use. Let's move on to the advanced calibration. These audio processors are the advanced digital means for optimizing analog tape recording. But most of them may not work right away without knowing the characteristics of the targeting analog tape and recorder as an external system. To be specific, the characteristics will be given by 3 audio parameters, which are the reference level, the maximum output level, and the signal-to-noise ratio. To set the parameters, please use these 3 sliders on the app's UI. First, drag this slider to a position between -6 and -10 dBFS range. And then drag this slider until the distance between these 2 sliders equals to the maximum output level. Next, drag this slider until the distance between these 2 sliders is approximately the signal-to-noise ratio. Please note that with this advanced calibration being done, always engage the normalization feature by selecting one of the 3 options, except the None option. Finally, the audio level needs to be aligned between the computer and the connected tape recorder. To do so, select 400 Hz or 1 kHz to temporarily turn on the built-in test tone generator and start recording. Meanwhile, adjust the tape recorder's recording level knob and/or the computer's output volume control until the tape recorder's meter is pointing to the 0 mark. So far, a key question is still open. That is, given a tape and a recorder, how to determine the values of these 3 parameters. The answer is, there is no standard recipe for it. Tape recording is a multi-factor optimization art, which relies not only on objective rules but also subjective judgments. The software app itself is just a tool rather than a cookbook. However, if some sort of minimum guidances are still preferred for startup, the app comes with a few suggestions in its embedded document. Please use this menu item to open the table of contents, and then open the level calibration chapter. In the advanced calibration section, there are a few but not exhaustive suggestions on how to determine these parameters by experimenting, by estimating, or by measuring. There is one more thing in the advanced calibration. If one of the Dolby-compatible noise reduction encoders will be used, one additional calibration needs to be done on top of the advanced calibration. To do so, please keep the recorder in recording mode. Click on this button to bring up a special calibration dialog. Click on this checkbox, and drag this slider until the recorder's meter is pointing exactly to the Dolby symbol. And of course, this calibration is only possible if there is a Dolby symbol on the recorder's meter. And the recorder should have been internally calibrated for recording the given tape at Dolby reference level, or otherwise, Dolby mistracking may still occur. Again, the advanced calibration is not mandatory for using this app. It is only required if the additional audio processors will be used. And it is a non-trivial thing for beginners. For an experienced user, however, usages are not limited to what have been documented. For example, the peak normalization can be engaged without requiring the advanced calibration. Using the audio processors. This app provides 4 types of audio processors for optimizing tape recording from digital source. The normalization is a process to unify the audio signal levels of all audio files, so that the entire album can be played at a consistent and uniformed level. The peak normalizer is the most commonly used one. If engaged, This app sets the maximum peak dBFS determined by the position of this slider, and then apply a proper constant gain to each audio file so that the maximum absolute audio sample in that audio file equals to the specified peak. This is the safest normalizer to ensure that the given peak saturation level is respected. It is a good choice for the audio tapes with relatively tight headroom, such as cassette tapes. But since it is a peak normalizer, it cannot unify the perceived loudness. Hence, it is suitable for an album with all tracks in a similar music genre. The VU normalizer unifies audio signal levels of all audio files by the traditional volume unit measurement. If engaged, this app will apply a proper constant gain to each audio file so that the vast majority portion of that audio file stays below a predefined VU threshold relative to the position of this slider. This is a sound intensity normalizer that keeps the audio volume as even as possible across all the audio files. It is a good choice for working with the tape recorders equipped with VU meters. However, it may allow short overshoot peaks pass through it without warning. Thus, it is suitable for the audio tapes with more reserved headrooms, such as reel-to-reel tapes. For experienced user, it can also be applied to cassette tapes. The LUFS normalizer is a relatively modern normalizer based on the standard loudness unit's full-scale measurement, which accounts for the human hearing characters, including frequency response. It is widely adopted by the major online music services, such as Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. If engaged, this app sets the target LUFS relative to the dBFS value indicated by this slider, and normalize all the audio files to this uniformed loudness level. Theoretically, this is an ideal normalizer for the best auditory experience. But since LUFS is a digital audio measurement, there is no LUFS meter on any analog tape recorder, of course. It may need a trial and error approach to get it working right for analog mixtaping. All these normalizers are linear gain stages, which are lossless audio processors, and efficient for aligning digital and analog audio levels. But since digital and analog are two generations of audio format, the generational gap can sometimes become too deep to be covered by level normalization alone, as the inherent noise floor of analog tape sets an unyielding bottom limit. Fortunately, the extended dynamic range of digital audio often remains underutilized. For example, many contemporary pop music tracks exhibit modest dynamic ranges, particularly in the early decade of the 21st century, where the infamous loudness wars have spawned an abundance of overcompressed audio content with poor dynamic depth. They can be easily transferred to analog tape without any compression. However, this does not imply that the digital to analog transfer is always safe. When using faithful digital audio sources for making an analog mixtape, a dynamic range mismatch may occur anytime, making compression inevitable. In such cases, there are only two choices: managed compression or unmanaged compression. While some people do favor the unmanaged compression when magnetic tape is overly stressed, for others, who prefer to use managed compression, this app provides three options. The DALC compressor is a digital version of the traditional automatic level controller. When processing a highly dynamic audio content, this compressor constantly monitors the audio level and adjusts the recording gain accordingly, so as to keep the peak level below the clipping threshold while also maintaining the lower level above the noise floor. Compared to the traditional analog ALC, the digital ALC here is able to foresee the input signal before it is processed, so that it can react on sharp overshoots in advance and thus reduces transient clipping distortion. This compressor doesn't operate at a constant compression ratio. However, the maximum amount of compression can be roughly adjusted by moving this slider. The DXL compressor here is a digital equivalent of the analog linear decibel compressor, which was typically provided by DBX Incorporation, but in a different category other than the well-known DBX noise reduction systems. This compressor works on a rotated operating line, which amplifies the quiet portions of the audio signal to a greater extent than the louder portions of the audio signal, so as to boost more lower-level signal above the noise floor. The angle of the rotated operating line can be roughly adjusted by moving this slider. The soft knee compressor divides the operating line into two parts and raises the middle joint point like a knee, meanwhile, softening the knee tip by fitting a Bezier curve. Such an operating curve may effectively boost the average energy without significantly amplifying the peaks and valleys, so that the result will sound intenser without introducing excessive artifacts. This compressor incorporates a look-ahead feature, which can analyze the input signal in advance and reacts with a negative attack time, effectively preventing transient clipping distortion caused by abrupt overshoot. The compression ratio can be approximately adjusted by moving this slider. Sometimes, these compressors can be applied aggressively for special purposes. For example, making a mixtape that can be enjoyed in noisy environments, such as in car or in public transit. Speaking of cassette tapes, this format is available in 4 types for recording, and down to 2 EQ groups for playback. Certain players, such as in-car cassette players and basic portable cassette players, may lack a full compatibility with both playback EQ groups. When playing a tape not intended for the supported playback EQ group, the tones may sound noticeably off. Unfortunately, only a handful of cassette recorders permit the independent selection of the desired playback EQ group alongside the recording type. Here, the EQ translators in this app can help to achieve the desirable result without needing a special cassette recorder. The first option allows for recording a Type 2, 3 or 4 cassette tape that is intended for being played back with 120 microseconds EQ setting. The second option does the opposite, recording a premium Type 1 cassette tape that is intended for being played back with 70 microseconds EQ setting. The last option is for a special case, where a tape recorded on a Nakamichi deck might virtually and slightly lack of high-end frequencies when being played back on a non-Nakamichi deck. Engaging this option can compensate for such a nuance. Lastly, the app implemented 4 types of classic noise reduction encoders in the digital domain, which are compatible with their analog counterparts. The DDI-B is a digital equivalent of Dolby B system. The DDI-C is a digital equivalent of Dolby C system. The DX1 is a digital equivalent of DBX Type 1 system. And the DX2 is equivalent to DBX Type 2 system. By default, the selected audio processors are applied to all audio files in the virtual album. However, there are cases where a global normalization or compression setting may not be appropriate for certain individual files. To tailor settings for a specific file, click the Gear button to access the individual configuration dialog. This dialog enables the selection of a distinct normalizer, compressor, or local gain for the particular file. After customization, click the Back button to navigate back. Files with customized local settings will be indicated by a highlighted gear icon. Again, use of the audio processors requires the advanced calibration being done in advance, as mentioned before. All the audio processors are real-time processors without altering the original audio files themselves. Preview and test. Once a virtual album is ready, each side of the virtual album can be listened for test by using the preview control panel. If no audio file is selected, clicking on the play button for the desired side will start playing that entire side, including the silence of the leader tape length. To play a specific file, select it first, and then click on the corresponding play button. The progress bar is draggable. Drag to forward or rewind. The Now Playing window displays live progress for the currently playing track, while the bottom status bar shows the overall progress of the current side. Click on the Stop button to finish the current preview session. Click on the selected audio file again to deselect it. Output the result. There are multiple ways to output a virtual album for mixtaping. In a simplistic scenario, use this menu item to export each side of the virtual album to a standard playlist file. The resulting file is in M3U8 format, which is supported by most media player apps out there, which allows for taping the album by using any media player app of user's choice. Please note that with such a basic playlist file format, all the additional optimizations are not applicable. But if these additional optimizations are preferred, playlist is no longer a viable option. Instead, use this menu item to export each entire side to a single master audio file for taping, with all the audio tracks on the selected side spliced together in order, and with all the length-fitting options and audio processors applied. The supported output audio formats are WAV, FLAC, MP3 and AAC. The resulting master audio file is independent of this app and can be played by using any media player app of user's choice, or can be burnt on a CD for final taping. However, if the master audio file is produced with any of the audio processors involved, it must be taped at the specified reference level to avoid level mismatch errors. Use this menu item to save current reference level to a separate auxiliary audio file, which will be used for calibrating the future taping system. In the pop-up dialog, there are two options for reference type. The first option means to save an auxiliary audio file with a reference tone at 0 dB or VU. The second option means to save an auxiliary audio file with a reference tone at Dolby reference level. The first option is only good if the tape recorder used for calibrating this app will also be used for recording the tape in the future. This is because 0 dB does not have a consistent meaning across different tape recorders by brand and model, which makes it a less interchangeable reference. On the other hand, if a different tape recorder will be used in future for taping, and the DDI-B and C calibration has been done, the second option would be a safer choice. Of course, both current and future recorders should have Dolby mark on their meter, or the Dolby reference level given in their manual. The generated auxiliary audio file contains 30 seconds of reference tone signal. To use it, play it with the chosen media player app, test recording on the tape and adjust the computer's audio output volume and/or the tape recorder's recording level knob. If the auxiliary audio file contains a 0 dB or VU reference tone, move the tape recorder's meter to the 0 dB or VU mark. But if the auxiliary audio file contains a Dolby reference tone, move tape recorder's meter to the Dolby mark. Now, the taping system is ready to record the master audio file on the tape. Yet, there is one more option. For the users who don't have any allegiance to certain media player app, this app itself can be used for final taping directly. Despite being so-called preview mode, there is no compromise in audio quality implied behind it. The primary consideration lies in computing speed. As the app undertakes intensive audio processing while playing audio in real time, it is recommended to do it on a relatively powerful computer, and with minimum concurrent active tasks to avoid potential audio dropouts. In addition, the user can let the app try to request exclusive access to the sound card for virtually untouched sound quality. Please be aware that the success of obtaining exclusive access may vary across different systems and configurations, and thus may not be guaranteed for all cases. Finally, the user can optionally use this menu item to export all the tracks in the virtual album to a plain text file, which can be used for printing tracklist or J-card. Limitations and constraints. Please note, this app is not a pro-grade tool by design. Instead, it is a lightweight utility for audio enthusiasts who enjoy tape-based analog hi-fi. Analog mixtaping is a multi-factor optimization art, blending objective rules and subjective preferences. Everyone has unique workflow and feature requests to suggest. Developing a universally accommodating software for serving such a task is a challenge, especially with limited resources. Hence, this app retains its commitment to being focused, concise and cost-effective, and steering clear of an overwhelming user interface akin to a spaceship's cockpit. Nevertheless, there might still be a bit of a learning curve to getting started. Especially for beginners, this app is merely a tool rather than a cookbook. Having a basic understanding of analog tape recording beforehand would be of great help to overcome the initial learning curve. Please also be mindful of the following technical constraints. Online streaming sources are unsupported unless the audio tracks are pre-downloaded as local files. Items protected under the local audio library, such as iTunes, are unsupported. Audio tracks from LPs, CDs, and tapes cannot be directly utilized unless pre-ripped to local digital files. Acceptable audio file formats are WAV, FLAC, MP3, AAC and APE, but except those in uncommon subformat variants, or non-standard stereo channel layout. The preferred location for source audio files is the system-designated music folder. Or otherwise, explicit access permissions will be repeatedly requested. The app works the best with a standard sound card with standard stereo channel layout by default. While advanced Pro or Game sound cards may also function, they could require additional channel remapping at the operating system level. The exclusive sound card access mode is currently experimental, and its functionality isn't guaranteed across all sound card models. Common DJ features are not included, such as beat matching, plug-in interface, cloud sharing, graphic equalizer, and so on. So, hopefully this video has effectively demonstrated the features and limitations of this app. Since the digital age, people have been enthusiastic about transferring audio from analog tapes to digital files. Meanwhile, the new opportunities in the reverse direction has been largely overlooked. With the easy availability of high-quality digital audio sources today, the potential of analog tapes can be further unleashed, enjoyed and appreciated. Hence, the beauty of analog tapes deserve a renewed attention today. This app is a result of a nerdy effort to enhance the analog mixtaping experience, specifically with digital audio files. However, it is not based on artificial intelligence at all. The knowledges, experiences and skills of a human operator are always the most valuable assets in analog mixtaping. This app is available on the online store of Apple or Microsoft. It requires at least macOS 10 or Windows 10, and a computer with audio output port. Should you need more information, please visit the website at the provided URL. Thank you very much for watching.